Hi, and welcome to the next tutorial from Forest Creek Model Railways. Today I'm going to look at painting rail. So as far as I'm concerned, there's three ways you can paint your rails. The first, you can airbrush. A lot of people choose this method. You can use your paintbrush. And then there's the third option of the Woodland Scenics Track marker pens. I'm not going to go into airbrushing. There's plenty of tutorials on airbrushing on YouTube already. So what I'm going to do with this old piece of steel lifelike radius track is show the other two techniques used, so paint and paintbrush and the Woodland Scenics pen. When it comes to painting and paintbrush, your choice of colour, there's heaps of colours out there that you can choose. The one that I choose is Tamiya's XF64, just an acrylic paint, red-brown. I find it to be a pretty good rust colour on the rails. So, got my pot of paint and paintbrush. Any small old paintbrush will do. I've tried to find one that has bristles roughly similar to the height of the rail. Makes it easier to paint and not as much cleanup at the end of the day. So this is the brush size that I use to paint my rail. So without any further delay, you can either choose to paint your rail when it's already down or before you lay your track. There's no right or wrong, either way is fine, it's up to you. And all I do, paint on my paintbrush and run it along the rail, and also try to get it over the pins and the tie plates, because they would rust as well. As you can see, it's reasonably quick, not a lot of work goes into it. Tedious, yes, just go along painting your rail. It is easier to paint it before you put it down, but again, I have laid most of the track on my layout, so I'm painting rail that's already been laid, and this method works fine for that. So that's pretty much all there is to it. Like I said, very basic, very quick. Just go along and patch up those little areas along the tyre plates that you miss. Make sure you get a good coat along your rail. And the difference painting rail compared to unpainted rail makes is actually quite astonishing when it comes to your layout. Once it's painted and ballasted, that looks quite good. Again, you can paint your rail when it's down and ballasted, especially using your paintbrush, whereas if you try to airbrush, then you're going to make a bit more of a mess and you're going to end up with paint on your ballast as well. So that's why I like to use a paintbrush over an airbrush. But again, if I was painting my track before I laid it, nothing wrong with going along and using the airbrush and then ballasting and then doing your ties. Paint on top of the rails, not too concerning once it dries. Just use your Bright Boy or your track cleaner or even a bit of alcohol on a bit of cloth, and just go along and wipe the excess paint off. So that's painting with paintbrush and paint in a nutshell. Again, like I said, very simple, very basic, not much to it. The next method I'll look at is the Woodland Scenics Track Painter marker systems. This is Rusty Rail, TT4581. They're a 10mm pen. It's got instructions written on the pen about storage and use, and give it a good shake for about a minute, and then just push down on the nib until you start to get the paint to flow. The benefit with the paint marker system is it doesn't put such a heavy coat on your rail. It's a little bit lighter, and Woodland Scenics have a good range of colours available. It's a lot quicker, just going along and colouring it in, as compared to using your paintbrush. Just getting in all the nooks and crannies and going over your tie plates, getting it in there. As you can see, it's quite quick and not very messy. And they also have developed paints for your ties, paint pens for your ties. You can just draw over them. It's a no fuss, quick system, and I quite like it. And the colour, as you can see, is a little bit different to the red brown that I've chosen. It's a bit of a lighter rust colour, and when it dries it has that little tiny bit of transparency to it, which gives it that added little bit of realism. So although I've already started painting my rails, I'm considering going over it all again with one of these paint markers. So there we go, section done, and you can see the difference between the two there. So the paint on the outside rail, marker pen on the inside rail. And if you're doing a diorama and you don't need the connectivity with your track, you can also just use the pen and go over the top of your rail with just one quick motion and it's done. So yeah, very simple, good product. A little bit of a product review, I guess. The Woodland Scenics Track Paint. I like it, so I'll definitely be using it on my layout. And that's all there is to it, painting track. Like I said, very simple process, and it does make a big difference looking at unpainted track to painted track, whether it's steel track, nickel silver, whatever you use. Although a lot of people now are using nickel silver over the steel. I just had this old bit lying around. As you can see, it makes a world of difference. And then when you go through and either use pigments, paint, or the marker pens again, or anything else on your ties, you really start to get a good, authentic, realistic looking set of tracks. So that's it for this tutorial. It's nice and short, just covering rail painting with the Woodland Scenics track painting system and just normal acrylic paint and brush. Like I said, I'm not covering airbrushing. Feel free to watch other YouTube tutorials and see about airbrushing your rails. Again, not really a process that you can do once you've got track laid down, whereas either two of these methods works fine for anyone who's already laid their track and is looking at going back and adding that little bit of extra realism. So from me and Forest Creek Model Railway, hope you enjoyed this, and we look forward to seeing you at the next one. So from me, happy modelling.